So apparently, Hakeem Jeffries actually just spoke at an event, actually, I guess, hosted by Al Sharpton, go figure. And Hakeem Jeffries, I don't think he was prepared for this, but he was confronted. So I want to go ahead and bring up that clip here. Thank you, Radio Free Amanda, for sharing. Actually, we showed up this morning to tell Hakeem Jeffries exactly what his constituents think about his support for Israel. You guys know, as I've said before, Hakeem Jeffries takes a lot of money from AIPAC. He is one of those ones that do. So he is rightfully so being called out. Let's dive in here. So they jumped on this guy. It says Black activists confront Representative Hakeem Jeffries for his imperialist policies in Gaza and Haiti. And this guy here is basically saying, you say you stand for Black people. So that's what he's calling Hakeem out on. Let me actually go ahead and bump this up here a little bit for the volume. Here we go.
President Biden's leadership, Democrats.
You're a war criminal. How do you sleep at night? Down!
One thing I want to show you before we go to Eugene, because Eugene from Breakthrough News was actually there as well. If you guys look around the room, I just want you to see it's not packed. It is not packed. Not that many people wanted to come and listen to Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries, you use the guise of democracy and diplomacy to do the bidding of a racist, white supremacist, imperialist.
Take it out!
This gentleman here, so this is Eugene. Are you guys familiar with Breakthrough News? You watch Breakthrough News with Ronnie Akalik and Eugene. So that's Eugene. Let me go ahead and go back just a little bit. He called him out as well. Look at the look on Hakeem's face.
Take it out!
Carrying a bill for $14 billion to kill people in Gaza. They murdered 14,000 children.
People together, others.
Here you go.
We believe in
Take it out! No peace. Take it out! Justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
So notice something here, guys. Once again, you see it's mainly a lot of younger people that are standing up and confronting these politicians. Again, we got to give a clap and a shout out to Jose Vega because he kind of started this trend. He really did. Jose got out there when nobody else was really doing this and put himself at risk. He got out there and he's done this multiple times, whether it's politicians, whether it's journalists, and he kind of has passed on the torch. And now other people are doing this as well. And you see who's pissed off. The people who are upset about this are the older Black voters. This woman right here wasn't happy. So you see the change here and the disconnect when it comes to the Black community in this country and about supporting these politicians. Now, this speaks to Hakeem Jeffries' statement right after the attack. Yesterday, I want to show you what he said here. Statement in connection with Iran's unprecedented attack against the state of Israel. So listen to what Hakeem said. Iran, a sworn enemy of the United States, has launched an unprecedented attack against our democratic ally, the state of Israel. America's commitment to Israel's security is ironclad and unbreakable. Iran will not succeed. We stand with the people of Israel during this moment of significant change. So that is the statement from Hakeem. And I just want to add here, no, Hakeem, you stand with the state of Israel. Those of us that are not bought by AIPAC, those of us that are not politicians in DC, those of us that have a brain, don't. So they are right to confront Hakeem Jeffries. He's a sellout. He's a fraud. Him and Richie Torres belong in the same category. They're the politicians that say that they're progressive, except for Palestine. Also, except for Medicare for All, too. You can add that to the list. Now, that event was actually hosted by Al Sharpton, so he's angry. Al Sharpton, the activist, is upset with people practicing activism. Go figure. Al Sharpton says Al Sharpton accuses pro-Palestinian demonstrators of cowardice for interrupting Jeffries at the NYC convention. So what's more cowardice, folks? Sitting there in that seat and not confronting Hakeem Jeffries about the money that he takes from AIPAC and his silence on the death of the Palestinian people, or sitting there and saying nothing? Because I would argue it's cowardice to sit there and say nothing. It's cowardice to just nod your head and go along with Hakeem Jeffries because he's a Democrat and he's not a Republican. It's cowardice to accept the bare minimum and not request more. That's cowardice. What Hakeem Jeffries and Al Sharpton are doing isn't brave. And let's keep it real. Al Sharpton, he's one to say, well, you know, I marched with this person and I was there. He was always there. You notice this? I was there with Malcolm. I was there with this person. I was there with that person. But today you sit at a news desk on MSNBC and you're not there. You're not there. You're not revolutionary, Al. You're not even an activist anymore. You became comfortable. Al figured out he could make money a lot faster and he could make a lot more money if he gave in to the establishment. And it's not just him. It's a lot of other former activists that called themselves revolutionaries that have also followed this path. That's your Angela Davis as well. He's not alone. So he goes on to say here, holding us back. The Reverend Al Sharpton decried a group of demonstrators protesting Israel's offensive in Gaza after they shouted down House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries during a Saturday morning speech at the National Action Network convention. We had the governors, 3 governors, all kind of white officials, and none of you paid rent-a-toms disrupted them. Listen to what he said. We had the governors, 3 governors, all kinds of white officials, and none of you paid rent-a-toms, that's a phrase that he uses, disrupted them. Sharpton said repeatedly, repeating a racially loaded insult he's often used in the past. So first of all, he's incorrect. People have confronted white politicians as well. In fact, I think they confronted them first. Hakeem Jeffries is probably the least confronted. So he's wrong. There he is, just lying. People have confronted Kathy Hochul. People have confronted Cuomo. People have confronted Elizabeth Warren. They've confronted a lot of them. That goes to show you how out of touch he is. Protesters shouting about aid to Israel and the death toll in Gaza interrupted Jeffries multiple times inside the Sheraton Times Square Hotel, where the convention has been underway this week. It's unclear if the demonstrators were invited to the convention, but they began shouting shortly after Jeffries took the podium. The ongoing war in Gaza has riven both state and national Democrats. The party has a history of supporting Israel, but its left flank has held unceasing protests over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Sharpton and his National Action Network are a crucial ally for Democrats locally and nationally, and are frequently to the left of the mainstream Democrats on issues such as criminal justice. But Sharpton was an early defender of Israel in the wake of Hamas' October 7th attack. That's because Al Sharpton, like a lot of other activists, former activists that called themselves radical or revolutionary, decided it was easier to take the bag. That's why. Goes on to say here, Jeffries, who is in line to be the next Democratic House Speaker, has had the backing of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee for years. He released a statement this week supporting Biden's call for a negotiated resolution to the conflict that lays a foundation for a just and lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinian people. I appreciate folks exercising their First Amendment rights, but we're not in session in Washington. So I've got all day. After introducing Jeffries, Sharpton returned to the podium to admonish the protesters. You've got guts when a black man stand up. We had Biden here. You had nothing to say. You're a bunch of rented Uncle Toms. The president addressed the convention virtually on Friday. So let's go ahead and debunk that. Wasn't Joe Biden confronted when he spoke at the church in Charleston? Wasn't he confronted by Palestinian protesters? Biden has been confronted multiple times at speaking engagements by protesters that support the Palestinian movement. Again, this goes to show you Al Sharpton is out of touch. This is what happens when you only watch mainstream media and you're on mainstream media. This is how you get there. So Biden has been confronted a lot, probably the most. Probably the most. But Al Sharpton is using the fact that Hakeem Jeffries is black to basically use that as a defense to say you should not confront him and he should not be questioned because he is a black man. And I would argue to that, because he is a black man, he should support the Palestinian struggle. Because he is a black man, he should be speaking out and fighting in support of the Palestinian people, because we had solidarity with the Palestinian community. Fred Hampton did. MLK did. Malcolm X did. Nelson Mandela had solidarity with the Palestinian people. So that is my argument that I would give to Al Sharpton. Not that you sit up here and you sell out for Israel, a genocidal apartheid state. Make that make sense. Al took the bag. It goes on to say Jeffries has defended progressive members of his caucus with deeply critical views of the Israel-Hamas war, including Representative Jamal Bowman, who faces a serious primary threat from AIPAC-backed Westchester County Executive George Latimer. Jeffries recently endorsed Bowman, making him the highest-ranking Democrat in Washington to weigh in on the closely watched primary. So it goes on to say here, spokespeople for the National Action Network and Bowman's campaign did not immediately return requests for comments. And I push back on this as well, because the fact that Hakeem Jeffries endorsed Jamal Bowman, and Jamal Bowman is actually bragging about that on social media, by the way, that actually isn't a good look, because Jamal Bowman is a part of the Reject AIPAC coalition. Hakeem Jeffries takes a lot of money from AIPAC. So if you were endorsed by Hakeem Jeffries, who takes a lot of money for AIPAC, but you're a part of a coalition that is supposed to reject AIPAC, that tells me that if Jamal Bowman wins re-election, somewhere down the line, he's going to be shilling for AIPAC too. We got to follow the money, folks. We got to follow the money. And I'd say that about AOC and the rest of them as well. People have to pay attention. When we get into this story about AOC donating money to the DCCC, which is something that she said she would never do when she was running for office, it goes to show you that people can change when money is put in front of them and they want to be a careerist. So we all have to call these things out. Hakeem Jeffries has every right to be confronted when he's taking money from AIPAC, his position that he has on the BDS movement, and him standing up there pandering to the black community. And I would argue, those of you that live in his district, I would argue the majority of people supporting Hakeem Jeffries are not African Americans in his district. It's probably white liberals. Same with Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn, same thing. Most of the people supporting him in that district are white liberals, not black voters. We can't be fooled by this. So I don't feel bad for Hakeem, and Al Sharpton sold out a long time ago. I wonder what MLK would say if he were still alive today, to see that some of the people that he was in community with that said that they were radical, some of the people that said they were revolutionary, etc., some of these people, to see the way that they just sold out when the money was put in front of them. I wonder what they would say. I wonder what Fred Hampton would say, what Malcolm X would say.